My husband ditched me to take his coworker on our anniversary trip while I cared for my sick mom. So I served him divorce papers at dinner, and now he's losing everything. I never thought I'd be in this position, but here I am. My name is Emma, I'm 27, and I've been married to Mark, 28, for 3 years. We met back in college when I was studying education, and he was working toward his law degree. It was a whirlwind romance, and after a few years of dating, he proposed. Everything seemed perfect. Our wedding was beautiful, and the early years of our marriage felt like a dream. We were that couple, always laughing, supporting each other, and talking about our future. But over the past year, everything began to shift. Mark became completely consumed by his job at this big law firm. I understood that he was ambitious, and I admired that about him, but lately it felt like his work had taken priority over our relationship. At first, I tried to be understanding. I knew the demands of being a lawyer, so I made excuses for his late nights, missed dinners, and weekends spent at the office. I thought it was a phase, something temporary. I even started planning a special trip for our anniversary, hoping we could reconnect and get back to where we once were. Then, about 6 months ago, Mark started mentioning this new hire at the firm, Claire, 25. He would talk about her frequently, saying how she was young, ambitious, and a great addition to the team. He said they worked well together and shared ideas effortlessly. I didn't think much of it initially. I've never been the jealous type, and I trusted Mark. But over time, I started noticing subtle changes in him. He began dressing more sharply for work, hitting the gym more often, and he was always on his phone, even when we were supposed to be spending time together. I'd ask him what was going on, and he'd brush it off as just work. I even joked once, should I be worried about Claire? He laughed and said I was being ridiculous, but something inside me told me I wasn't. He kept mentioning her casually in conversation, like Claire suggested a new approach on this case, or Claire had a great idea in the meeting today. It made me uneasy, but I tried not to overthink it. Meanwhile, our relationship deteriorated. There were no more date nights, no real conversations, and worst of all, no intimacy. I tried to address it multiple times, but every attempt was met with Mark saying he was just stressed from work. He became more distant, working later hours and texting constantly, even at home. I was starting to feel like a stranger in my own marriage. But every time I brought it up, he would dismiss me and say I was overreacting. Then, there was Claire. Always Claire. When he talked about her, there was something in his tone, a certain look on his face that made my stomach churn. The final straw came when he skipped our planned date night to attend a work event with her. I confronted him, asking if something was going on between them, and he looked at me like I was insane. "Claire is just a friend," he said. "You're being paranoid." I wanted to believe him, but the signs were too glaring to ignore. Our anniversary was approaching, and I had planned a romantic getaway to the mountains, just the two of us. I was hoping that the trip could bring us back together, but then I received devastating news. My mom fell seriously ill and was hospitalized. I told Mark he should still go on the trip while I stayed behind to care for my mom. I wanted him to relax and clear his mind so that we could talk when he returned. I trusted him completely. For the first 2 days of the trip, we texted and FaceTimed like normal. But then, things started to change. He became distant, sending short, vague replies, and taking hours to respond. I tried to brush it off, thinking he was just enjoying the time away, but something felt off. Then, one of my friends who happened to be vacationing in the same area sent me a picture. It was Mark, having dinner with Claire at the same restaurant we had reservations for. I couldn't believe it. While I was home caring for my sick mother, he was enjoying the anniversary trip we had planned, with her. Since he got back, I haven't confronted him yet. I'm still trying to process everything, but I can feel the rage building inside me. Part of me wants to scream at him, throw him out, and file for divorce on the spot. But another part of me is still in shock, wondering if there's any way to salvage this marriage. I haven't told anyone yet, except for my best friend, who is urging me to leave him. Update 1. After days of stewing in my anger and hurt, I finally decided to confront Mark. I had rehearsed what I was going to say over and over in my head, but nothing could have prepared me for how it actually went down. I waited until we were both home on a Saturday evening. I didn't want to do this over text. I wanted to look him in the eyes. He was sitting on the couch, as usual, glued to his phone. "We need to talk," I said, taking a seat across from him. He looked up, clearly not expecting the serious tone. "What's going on?" I took a deep breath. "I know about Claire. I know you took her on our anniversary trip." Mark's face went pale. For a moment he looked like he might deny it, but instead he sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "Emma, it's not what you think." "Oh, really?" I snapped. "Because what I think is that you took your work fling on a romantic vacation that was meant for us. Our anniversary, Mark." "It wasn't like that," he said, trying to defend himself. "Claire was going through a hard time, and I thought it would be nice for her to get away too." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So you decided to take her on our trip? Do you have any idea how that looks? How that makes me feel?" He mumbled something about it just happening, and that I was the one who insisted he go. But I wasn't buying it. When I mentioned the picture my friend sent, his face said it all. He knew he was caught. That night, Mark left, saying he needed time to think. I didn't care. I needed time too, to plan my next move. I called a lawyer the next morning. Update 2. It's been 2 weeks since I handed Mark the divorce papers. Things have been tense, to say the least. He's still living in the house, but we barely speak. Every time he tries to apologize, it's like he expects me to just forgive and forget. But I can't. Not after everything he's put me through. The divorce process is already starting, and I've been reviewing our finances with my lawyer. That's when I found out that Mark has been financially supporting Claire. Dinners, trips, even paying part of her rent on a couple of occasions. I was livid, but it just confirmed what I already knew. Mark has tried to win me back in every way he can think of. Flowers, apologies, promises to cut off contact with Claire. But I'm done. I've made it clear that there's no coming back from this. He doesn't seem to fully believe me, though. He's still holding on to some hope that I'll change my mind. Meanwhile, word about his affair with Claire has spread at his law firm. His reputation is in shambles. People are gossiping about their relationship, and his bosses are not happy. I've heard that his job might be in jeopardy, and Claire has already transferred to another firm to avoid the scandal. Their little fling is starting to cost them both dearly. I've started looking for a new place to live. I can't stay in this house any longer. Every room is a reminder of what used to be, and it's suffocating. Moving on has been harder than I imagined, but I know it's the right thing to do. I deserve better than this. Update 3. It's been 3 months since I filed for divorce, and things have only gotten messier. Mark is contesting everything. The house, the cars, even our joint savings. He's trying to make this as difficult as possible, dragging out the process, thinking that I'll give in and take him back. But he's wrong. The fallout from the affair has hit him hard. His performance at work has suffered, and his reputation is still tarnished. He gave up his marriage for Claire, and now he's paying the price, both personally and professionally. As for me, I'm slowly rebuilding my life. I've moved into a small apartment and started focusing on myself. It's been difficult, but I'm finding my strength again. My parents and friends have been incredibly supportive, and I'm grateful for that. I thought I would feel vindicated watching Mark's world fall apart, but the truth is, it's just sad. He made his choices, and now he has to live with them. As for me, I'm ready to close this chapter of my life and move on. Thank you for following along with my story. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that I deserve to be with someone who values and respects me. And that's exactly what I'm going to find. Story 2. My sister made me maid of honor, but then humiliated me by sticking me at the kids' table during her wedding. My sister, who is 34 years old, and her husband, 36, got married about 3 months ago. I, at 30 years old, was chosen to be her maid of honor. Naturally, I was excited and honored to be part of her special day, especially because it felt like a chance to bring us closer. At the time, I was unemployed, so I took on almost all of the wedding planning responsibilities, while my sister continued her full-time job as a doctor. There was no wedding planner involved, so I ended up doing everything. The months leading up to the wedding were incredibly tough. My sister treated me more like her personal assistant than her maid of honor. She didn't just ask for help, she demanded it. often with little to no appreciation for my time or effort, from organizing the bridal shower to handling RSVPs, seating arrangements, and managing vendors. I was essentially running the entire show. It felt like my life revolved around her wedding. I even coordinated her dress fittings and helped her choose the flowers, all while juggling my own personal life and the stress of being unemployed. It was exhausting. Still, I convinced myself that she was just under pressure and that once the wedding was over, things would go back to normal. The more I did for her, the more entitled she became. The few times I tried to set boundaries, she would throw a fit, guilt-tripping me by saying, "This is my special day and you're my maid of honor. Shouldn't you want everything to be perfect for me?" It felt manipulative, but I swallowed my frustration and pushed through, telling myself that this was a once-in-a-lifetime event. What really stung was her refusal to invite my fiancé to the wedding at first. We've been together for 12 years, yet she had the audacity to say that his presence would distract from her big day. It made no sense, especially since my siblings' partners, who had been around for far less time, were invited. Her reasoning was that she didn't want people asking about my engagement and shifting focus away from her. This was particularly insulting because deep down, I knew she was still bitter about how close my fiancé and I are, especially since her relationship with her husband was fairly new in comparison. I was so upset that I refused to continue working on her wedding until she apologized and invited my fiancé. After much back and forth, she begrudgingly sent him an invite, but it was clear that her apology wasn't sincere. I only accepted it to avoid causing more drama, but the hurt lingered. Despite everything, I chose not to make a scene. I decided to stay at the reception, sitting quietly at my designated table with my fiancé, even though I felt completely disrespected. However, I made the decision not to give the maid of honor speech. How could I stand up and give a heartfelt speech about someone who had treated me so cruelly on her big day? It just didn't feel right. When my parents realized what had happened, they were furious on my behalf. They couldn't believe that my sister had seated me so far away from the family, but my other siblings didn't seem to care. When they found out I wasn't planning to give the speech, two of my brothers came over to reprimand me. They told me that I was being selfish and that I needed to be the bigger person because it's her day. They even called me a disgrace for not standing up and making the speech, accusing me of being immature and petty. The irony of it all was that I was sitting quietly at my table, trying to make the best of a bad situation while they were the ones causing a scene. They didn't understand the emotional toll this had taken on me, or maybe they just didn't care. By the time dessert was served, I had had enough. My fiancé and I quietly slipped out of the reception and decided to grab burgers at McDonald's. It was a relief to get away from the tension and negativity. Later that night, I posted a photo of us enjoying our post-wedding meal on social media, more as a lighthearted moment for us. But of course, my siblings saw it as an insult to my sister. To this day, my sister refuses to admit that she did anything wrong. When asked why she seated me at the kids' table, she gave several shallow excuses. I didn't plan the wedding exactly as she wanted. She didn't like how I looked in my gown and thought I was trying to upstage her. She still resented the fact that I insisted my fiancé be invited. My own wedding plans. I haven't even started planning my own wedding, partly because I was so focused on hers, and partly because she had previously demanded that I wait until after her wedding to get married, since she's the older sister. At the time, I agreed just to avoid drama, but now I'm seriously considering a small, intimate wedding with only my parents and a few close friends. I've decided that I don't want to invite my siblings at all. My parents support my decision, but my other siblings are calling me childish and telling me that I'm being petty. But why should I pay for a wedding where people who don't care about me get to attend? My fiancé and I have been saving for a destination wedding, and we're paying for everything ourselves. I see no reason to invite family members who have shown no regard for my happiness, especially after how I was treated at my sister's wedding. Update. I should mention that I come from a large family, 5 children in total. I have 2 older sisters and 2 younger brothers. The 2 older sisters have always been extremely close, often presenting themselves as the perfect sisters. Meanwhile, I've always been the middle child, the one left out. I've always longed for that close, sisterly bond, which is why I was so excited when my sister asked me to be her maid of honor. I thought it was finally a chance for us to connect. Little did I know, I was simply being used for free labor. My other sister, who was also named Maid of Honor, barely lifted a finger and still received all the praise for the wedding preparations. In hindsight, I should have seen it coming. Growing up, my sisters often mocked me, calling me stupid and making fun of my weight. They would make cruel remarks about my epilepsy, belittling me in front of others. They always treated me as the odd one out. Even now, they've made comments about how I shouldn't marry my fiancé because he's too good for me. The seating arrangement at my sister's wedding was just the latest and most public humiliation, but it was by no means the first time they've hurt me. My fiancé and I have now decided to elope. We're planning a small church ceremony with just a few close friends and then heading to the beach for a destination wedding in the Philippines. We'll spend 5 days island hopping, celebrating our love with the people who genuinely care about us. When we return, we'll have a family luncheon to celebrate. I've decided to seat my siblings at the far end of the table, just like I was seated at my sister's wedding. It's not about revenge, it's about setting boundaries and showing them that I won't allow them to disrespect me anymore. In the end, the wedding was about love and being surrounded by those who truly care. My siblings have hurt me too many times to count, but I've realized that family isn't always defined by blood. My husband, my friends, and the family I've chosen along the way are the ones who truly matter. I've finally broken free from the toxic relationships with my siblings, and I couldn't be happier. Thank you to everyone who offered advice and support. I now see that the treatment I endured wasn't normal, and I'm ready to move forward with my life. Commentary time. For Story 1. Wow, Emma's journey is a masterclass in resilience and self-respect. It's heartbreaking to see how her trust was betrayed by Mark, who chose his work friend Claire over his own wife, even on their anniversary. Emma's patience and willingness to give him the benefit of the doubt is admirable, but his actions, taking Claire on their trip, supporting her financially, and expecting Emma to just brush it off, crossed so many lines. Serving him divorce papers at dinner was a powerful move that took incredible courage. It wasn't easy, but Emma deserves someone who values her loyalty and respects her enough to communicate, not deceive. Watching the consequences of Mark's actions unravel, with his professional and personal life falling apart, is a bittersweet reminder that choices have consequences. Emma's focus on her own well-being and her determination to rebuild her life are a great reminder that sometimes closing a chapter is the best way to start a new one filled with self-love and empowerment. You go, Emma. Now for Story 2. The cruelty OP endured at her sister's wedding is jaw-dropping. Her dedication to making her sister's big day perfect, only to be humiliated by being seated at the kids' table, is not something most people would be able to endure with such grace. OP's restraint in not making a scene and quietly leaving with her fiancé shows remarkable self-control and maturity. Her decision not to give the maid of honor speech after that treatment was justified, and it's frustrating to see her siblings criticize her for it. In the end, OP's choice to elope with her fiancé and exclude her toxic siblings from their wedding shows her strength and self-worth. Sometimes, family can be the people we choose, not the ones we're born into. She's truly set on creating a future with people who value her happiness, free from unnecessary drama, wishing her and her fiancé a beautiful, peaceful journey together in the Philippines. Thank you for sharing these incredible stories of empowerment and boundaries. If you were as moved as I was, don't forget to leave a comment with your thoughts, hit that like button, and subscribe for more stories of strength and growth. See you in the next one.